Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar for Lifetime's Adoptive Families. This is Kim King. I'm one of the Adoptive Family Coordinators here at Lifetime, and we're so glad you could join us. We see we have a mixed audience of families who are already with us on board as Lifetime families, and some new faces that are just starting to get to know us, and some who are sort of in between. But we're glad that you're making time to be with us tonight as we interview our special guest and she shares her story. We wanted to go over a few things with you before we get started. If you are new to Lifetime and have not filled out our free application online, I encourage you to do so because that's really a great way to initiate a conversation with us so we can learn more about what you have in mind for your adoption, as well as start to answer questions with information that's relevant to where you are in the process and your characteristics that are going on your end. So the first step is to fill out the application online at lifetimeadoption.com/apply. Real easy, just lifetimeadoption.com/apply. While you're on the website, I encourage you to take a gander over at our newly adopted page, because that's where Lifetime families who have completed their adoptions, they send us photos and sometimes even videos and little messages to share how things are going now after the adoption. So there are lots of great photos of recent families who have completed, and I think that's very helpful and encouraging. If you have not already joined us on Facebook, please, I encourage you to do so, because we always have great conversations going on with Facebook with our families who are all across the country, as well as birth moms too and adoptees all chiming in, and we often have little discussions going on Facebook. The link to Facebook is facebook.com/open.adoption. My email address is kim@lifetimeadoption.com, so if you're new to Lifetime and you don't have someone that you can reach out to here, I'm happy to get you started and answer some questions and share information. So if you'd like to request any information about the program, email me, kim@lifetimeadoption.com. If you're already with us, then you probably already know who your coordinator is, so if you have questions, I encourage you to reach out to her, of course, directly. The phone number here at Lifetime is 1-800-923-6784, so we encourage you to also call if you prefer to talk with us one-on-one versus email. Either way is fine with us. So with that, Livy, thank you for setting up everything tonight with our special guest and the great photos you have in store for us.
Well, they're not my photos. Thanks to Laci. We have some really good photos to show people tonight. And if you're joining us online, you'll be able to see those. And again, like I was saying during our sound check, I want to encourage all of you to type your questions in or type your comments for Laci tonight, because I think getting information from another parent who's gone through the process recently and is living with adoption today is going to be some of the best advice, some of the best tips and encouragement that you're going to get along the way. Of course, every adoption is so unique, but what I love about adoption stories is that there's always sort of this common thread, and it seems like adoption really is this special sort of bonding glue that happens among people who become touched by adoption, whether you're an adoptive parent or you were adopted or you're a birth parent or you're related to one of these people in the triad. It's just amazing to see, and I love adoption stories, because what I always hear is, yes, I want to share my story and help other people who were where I used to be. You know, I want them to know they're going to make it. I want them to know what I learned, but also the hindsight that I have now that I have my baby at home. So I'm just so glad to see all of you here, and you can type questions in that chat box or questions box on your screen, or you can email them to us. You can use Kim's email, and she'll see those come in. She can always share those if you get them over to kim@lifetimeadoption.com. So tonight, I've actually been in talks with Laci for a while to share her story, and I'm so glad it worked out where we could actually host it tonight. Josh and Laci adopted their darling little boy from Lifetime almost a couple of years ago, but they walked through some ups and downs in their very real journey, and I'm excited to have her here tonight to just share what it was like for her and the things that are on her heart to share with all of you who are hoping and planning to adopt. So thank you so much, Laci, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
You know, when you reached out to me, and it was sort of a different twist, and I loved it, you said, I wish there had been more more information just about that phase when you actually get to know that birth mother, when she's chosen you, and through that, because that's definitely a waiting season of its own. I think a lot of times when people think about adoption wait, they think of waiting to be chosen, but once you're chosen, it's a whole new wait going on.
Right. And it's a little tougher, I think.
I think I would agree, because now you actually have more answers and you feel like, okay, now there's more, not more at risk, but now there's more specific that you're moving towards, and you know more about, okay, here's my timeline, and
right.
Are we ready? Are we connecting? How's this moving forward? So I really want to talk about, I think that you probably, if I recall from your story, you shared some infertility history in common with a lot of other parents, right?
It's a slightly different. We never actually tried to get pregnant. I had some health issues, some really awful stuff related to hormones that was causing some neurological issues and migraines and just really bad stuff. So my doctor was telling me that it might not be a good idea to try that. So we just immediately, we were okay with that. I wanted to be a mom. We didn't really care how, so we felt that this would be the best way. While I fixed my health, got a little better, I'm doing really well now. And it was, it worked out perfectly.
So once you decided to adopt, how did you ultimately come to choose open adoption? Because there are different types of adoption. So how did you, as your future family goal, get to that point? Because there's a lot of people on the call who are just still thinking, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how to recognize what I want to pursue.
Right. My husband is actually a psychologist, and so he works with a lot of families, foster families, and people in adoption, and so he's kind of seen it all. So he was a little tougher to convince, because he's also seen some of the bad sides that don't work out so well. So what it took for us is getting to see that there really are positive stories out there, getting to talk with other couples. We were kind of considering adoption and trying to make the decision. We kind of talked to each other and met a couple at our church that we got along real well with, just kind of chatted with them. We had no idea, but they had adopted their daughter. So as we got to know them, it was kind of a sign to us that, whoa, here's this couple we just made a friendship with, and they just did an adoption. So they were able to kind of talk us through and tell us about their experience, and it kind of felt to us like, okay, we're being led in this direction. Maybe this is the way we're supposed to go. And as we learned from them and their open adoption, as we talked to more and more couples, and I would read some of the forums online of different people's stories, I started to feel a little more comfortable and feel like open adoption is the healthiest option for all the families involved.
Yeah, I love that you explained that, because I think that is probably where most people go, even if they don't have a professional background that has actually led them to see some of those, ifs, or, will it be like that for us, or I've heard it can go this way, that you actually came to that decision still, even after having had experiences where you're just not sure if that's positive. So that's really great. And so you entered the process, you muddled through all those steps to get ready, and then you were waiting, and you actually got chosen now twice before Brendan's birth mother chose you, right?
Yeah, we had an initial match in May that she was about 2 weeks out before she was due. And it was a very whirlwind, fast match. We got very excited. It was a little girl, so we, rushed out and bought the baby stuff we hadn't bought yet, because we had not expected to be matched. So we were getting very excited. It was coming up to Mother's Day weekend. The plan was to drive up there as soon as she went into labor. She was in our state, and suddenly the due date came and went, and we didn't hear anything. So that was a bit of a scary time. We had no idea what was going on. I kind of had a feeling in my heart that it was not going to work out this time, but my husband still had a lot of hope, so he was still excited, but I just had a feeling that it was not right this time. Sure enough, we got the call that she had changed her mind and decided to parent, which was not totally unexpected, but it was still difficult. And then I think it was, maybe about a couple weeks later, we got another opportunity. That one never ended up actually matching because she changed her mind as well, but it was very early in the pregnancy, so we never actually contacted with her.
Okay.
And then and then it was shortly after that that we matched again with our wonderful son's birth mother. And I think she was about 4 months along in her pregnancy at that point.
So then, and we have beautiful photos of Callie tonight too. And so what I want to focus on tonight is really, because I think there are some families on the call that I know have walked through a failed match, but other people who sometimes just feel like, I've heard that can happen, I'm not sure how I can get through that. How did you prepare your mind, especially since those opportunities all came so close together?
Right.
How did you prepare yourself so you faced it once, and then a lot of times people get real nervous about accepting another opportunity even though they still want to adopt? How did you approach it differently or the same, even just allowing yourself to take that chance again?
Well, it definitely colored our view of the next match going forward, because I think when you initially start out, you feel like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'll be the exception. That only happens to other people. So we kind of had this big hope that there wouldn't be any disrupted matches or nobody would change their mind. And when it happened, it was a bit of a shock, but I think it allowed us to realize that, okay, we are ready to be parents, because we had to kind of get everything together in those few days where we were expecting, here's this baby, we're going to be a mom and a dad in a few days. And it kind of forced us to jump into that mindset. And I think it pointed out to us how ready we were and how much we wanted it. So that was difficult also, kind of having that pulled away and realizing, okay, we don't know how much longer it's going to be now until it actually happens. So moving forward from there, I think it taught us to kind of take a step back and not think of our next match as this is our baby, because we realize it's not our baby until they are home with us and everything is finalized. So going forward, from that point forward, realizing that until that moment, it's the expectant mom's baby, and we need to treat it like that. You can still have hope, still be excited, but it helped me to kind of hold my heart back a little bit until it was time.
Right, and I love that you said that, because Marty, I know Marty, Lifetime's founder, has talked about that, hold a piece of your heart back. Because I also know from personally working with these mothers that they want to know that you're excited. So, what would you tell someone? I think what you just explained about keeping the perspective on, this is her baby. And it could become my baby. And I hope that it goes that direction, and being available to her, but also not feeling blown away when it doesn't pan out. I think that was such a good explanation. I hope that encourages some of you listening to just know that it's okay to be excited. She wants to know you're excited. When you got to talk with Callie the first time, did any of that come out when you matched with her, or did you just decide this is not appropriate, this is not her burden?
I think what we tried to do when we first started talking is just kind of focus on getting to know her. We didn't want to bombard her with, you know, did you do this? Did you do that? Have you been taking these vitamins? You know, I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed. So we just kind of focused on, you know, we don't know each other. You know, what kind of things do you like to do? How are you feeling? You know, what is your area that you live in like? You know, what are some of your goals? And just finding out those things, we realized we had a lot in common. And she's very easy to talk to because we have a lot in common, so she's easy to get along with, and I think that really helped our relationship moving forward. When it got to some of the harder questions, we already had that established.
Oh, I was just having that conversation with someone today, you know, that you can't meet a stranger and just dump everything out on the table because there's no basis on which to trust what's true or characteristic or part of their integrity or anything. You can't listen to somebody's deep, dark secrets and stories and questions when you don't know who they are.
Right, and pregnancy is pretty invasive. I mean, you get a lot of personal questions thrown at you.
That's right. You know, just the other day I was talking with Veronica about this stage in the adoption process. Veronica is one of our senior birth mom coordinators here at Lifetime, and she gave a tip that they like to encourage our families to do is keep a little notebook handy so when you know you have a question on your mind that you're planning to ask the birth mom, write it down. You might end up with 10 questions that are very specific that you'd like to talk to her about, but if you have them written down, you can sprinkle them throughout your interactions over the course of time rather than, you know, we don't want a birth mom to feel as though she's being grilled. That's not comfortable at all. So that would be a tip.
You mean you don't like that?
And then also, you know what? Write down the answers in that notebook so that you don't have to go back and ask her about it again. You know it's already, you know, you've asked. So.
Well, or Kim, you reminded me too of just even how a lot of times our initial conversations, both with adoptive parents and birth parents goes at Lifetime is when they call. People will usually just tell you things, so if you write down your questions, they'll kind of already be there as you're getting to know each other, and you can think, wow, I didn't even have to ask her. She just said that on her own. Things naturally come out, and you can kind of check it off like, phew, I don't have to ask her that, you know. But I think what I love hearing, Laci, is just you had the time because you said she was only about 4 months along. So you had these 5 months left to get to know each other. Did that surprise you that you had so much time to get to know her? Do you think that that was a challenge in itself, that there was so much time?
Definitely. I think we had it in our minds that it would be a much shorter match, maybe the last month or two of pregnancy. So it was hard and scary in a way to realize that there was so much time that things could change and you know, her situations could change and her opinions. And but looking back, I'm actually really glad it worked out that way because it simply allowed us to get to know each other a little better and get everything in place. And that's just how long it had to be to have our son here. He was meant to be here.
So you had all this time. Now, did you get to meet her while she was still pregnant in those months that you knew each other?
Yeah, she was all the way across the country from us. We were in California, and she was in Florida at the time. So it was very difficult to make it out that way beforehand. But what we planned to do, because she was due right near Christmas, we decided to head out there a little bit early to try and save on the Christmas airfare, and it's a tourist area that she was in, so things were very expensive, but we decided to go a little bit early to try and help with that, and we were able to get a place there where we could kind of meet her ahead of time when there wasn't all the stress of the birth. We went to lunch with her and her mom, and we toured the hospital. We went to her last doctor's appointment and got to hear Brendan's heartbeat, which was really cool.
Wow.
And the ultrasound tech, or the person that was doing, I think it's called a Doppler, she came in and she just assumed we were sisters because the way we were talking. So that was kind of neat.
You had all that time.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't awkward. I mean, there's always awkward moments when you're meeting somebody new, but it felt comfortable. It felt like they were already family, which was really neat.
And so you're out there, and did you meet her family?
Yeah, her mom lived there with her, and that was the only family in the area. But yeah, we had a chance to talk with her mom, and we spent time after the birth as well with her and her mom. They came back to the condo we had rented, and we just kind of hung out there and took care of the baby and talked all day. Went to his first pediatrician appointment together. So that was really nice to get to have that in-person time, I think.
Absolutely. And so I kind of, because a lot of your photos, I want to unfold them in sequence as we get to talk about, you know, once she went into labor. But we had a really good question come in from Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. It says, how many people did you share your match with before your baby was born? I feel like I will be so excited to tell everyone, but I, at the same time, want to keep it hidden about our progress.
Exactly. We kind of on our first match, we did the thing where we were so excited because, you know, we assumed it was going to go through so quickly that pretty much everybody knew. And they were all excited for us. Everybody was praying for us. Everybody at church knew. So then when it fell through, that kind of came back to bite us because then we had to go and explain that it fell through to everybody. You know, when we showed up to church the next week and everybody's like, oh, so how did it go? Are they here? And you know, we had to deal with the disappointment all over again when somebody asked. So we learned after that to kind of keep it a little bit closer until it was more of a sure thing. And it never is till the last minute, but we told our friends and family, since we were fundraising as well, people knew that we were adopting, but we didn't go into the specifics of the situation other than we're going to be traveling across the nation and hopefully we'll come back with a baby, but, you know, just pray for us and pray for her. Didn't get super specific, so we didn't go out and tell everybody in the world.
Right. And so then do you remember, because again, it sounds like it all kind of came together, and I want us to be able to backtrack too, Laci, because something you told me yesterday, again, points to, I really believe every adoption that happens has this huge element and giant arrow pointing to this was meant to be our son. But this question here from Megan said, how long did you actually talk with Callie before you officially matched?
I have to try and think back and remember. It was pretty quickly because after we found out later that she had actually been looking at our profile beforehand. So back when we were in the first match, I guess she had contacted you guys pretty early on in her pregnancy, but she was so early on that you asked her to wait a little bit longer. And when our first match fell through, she was told that we were then available. So she knew about us before we knew about her, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, so it wasn't very long to match after that because she was already excited about getting to know us. I think it was after the first phone call we decided to officially match.
So pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah.
And so then would you tell everyone what you found out when you heard about Callie and how she'd been considering you for a while?
That her and her mom had both been looking at profiles, I believe, through the phone app, and they both chose out an adoptive couple that they thought would be the best choice and came into the room together, and it was us. Both of them had chosen us separately.
It's just amazing. And at the time when they began thinking about adoption, you were matched with that other opportunity in May.
Yeah, and we had no idea that it would end up that way.
And so then you became available again, and she was further along in her pregnancy, and now at this point, more ready to talk with you. I mean,
yeah,
it's just amazing to me to have that kind of retrospect because I think, gosh, you know, she could have just as easily said, like, well, I also like this family,
Mhm.
and seen if there was a family willing to talk to her at 12 weeks or something. You know, it's more common that she's usually at least halfway through her pregnancy or later, like you were expecting. But
Mhm.
time to time, there are these mothers, just like we heard a couple of months ago when we got to hear from Heather and Chloe, where, you know, she actually was pretty early on when she was resolved to choose adoption. So you don't want to tell a
Mhm.
woman, no, you can't move forward when she's
Right.
saying, I want to make a plan for my baby.
Yeah.
But that it's really, to me, it's beautiful to think, you know, here Josh and I were walking through this situation that we thought was going to be our baby girl, and it fell
Mhm.
through, and we were so disappointed. And now here's this opportunity that we didn't even know that this woman was looking at our profile when we were going through that failed match. And she just pops up, and now we start a match, and we're moving forward. And
Mhm.
um, I just love that because there's always so much going on that we can't always see. Um, but I think it's encouraging to know those details because, you know, maybe it gives a little hope or encouragement. Um, and so I want to talk
Yeah.
about, we've had a few questions here about the hospital. And so knowing that you were going out to meet her a couple weeks before he was going to deliver, um, and that you'd gone through this opportunity before that where she had dropped contact. You know, did anything happen during your match with Callie that made you start to worry, like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen again? Are we going to go through this again?
Yeah, definitely. One of as you said, when our first match just kind of dropped off the face of the planet, nobody was able to get a hold of her until we found out later that she had had the baby basically in secret and not told anybody. That was fearful for us going forward. Callie is similar to me in the sense that we don't like to talk on the phone very much. We're just not phone people. We like to email more than anything. So most of our correspondence had been through email. And there came a couple of times where she just wouldn't respond to an email, or a time would go by where it would be a week or 2 weeks, and we'd start to worry because that had happened in the first situation. So we kind of freaked out internally and tried to trust that, you know, there's been no indication that she wants to change her mind. We hadn't really felt that from her, but she disappeared, and oh no, what if it's happening again? And it turned out it was fine. It was just, you know, being busy with school and work and being tired from the pregnancy, not going online. So it all turned out fine, but we had to get through that part. That was rather scary.
Yeah, and I know that you had wished, you know, that there was maybe a better explanation in those moments
Mm-hmm.
that could have been offered. And sometimes, I mean, I would say that's what you experienced with Callie is more often what happens, where it's just life is happening.
Yeah.
She's pregnant, she's tired, she's overwhelmed, maybe even just feeling very reflective and just
Mm-hmm.
not in touch. But once in a while, there are the times where you go through a match where the first situation happened, which is she's just hiding the fact that this baby came and she changed her mind because
Yeah.
uh,
She didn't want to hurt our feelings.
right, most women let us know, um, but it's a valid concern, and so you just have to sort of face it and then decide, how are we going to approach this, how are we going to keep moving forward. And I'm so glad that you got relief and an explanation.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this next photo that I'm bringing up here of Josh in the elevator, it looks like. So it was part of Callie's plan to actually have you involved at the delivery, right?
Yeah, we were staying about 45 minutes away from the town that she lived in and was going to give birth in. And so we got a call early that morning that, you know, she was probably going into labor, that she was laboring at home. Her mom called us and kind of filled us in on the details because she didn't want to talk at that point. I don't blame her. She was pretty busy. So we knew that it was coming throughout the day. We thought we had a lot of time, so we went to the beach with my family, who was also able to visit us at that time, and kind of tried to keep our mind off of worry and wait, which is nearly impossible when you've got something so exciting on the horizon. Just trying to distract yourself. So we did that. We got a call later that night that it would probably be wise to head out to the hospital, that she was about to head to the hospital. So we jumped in the car as fast as we could. It was raining, so we were trying to drive real safe. That was us heading up to the hospital floor on the elevator, rushing as much as we could. When we got there, her mom was in the waiting room to meet with us. And, we just kind of got to talking, waiting, asked her what was going on. She said, I'm still waiting to hear. It seems like she's still laboring. We'll probably get the word when it's time to head in. And all of a sudden, we hear one of those lullabies playing over the whole hospital floor. When a baby's born, they would play a little lullaby over the intercom. And her mom and Josh and I just kind of looked at each other and went, wait a minute, we're the only ones here. What does that mean? So her mom rushed to the phone and called and said, is that our baby? And sure enough, they said, yeah, come on in. Apparently he had come really fast, fast enough that the doctor had stepped out for a moment, and he was coming out. And they told her, wait, don't push. And she said, she yelled at them, how can I not push? And he just came really fast. So we were there pretty much right after. I mean, we held him very quickly. But other than that, yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. And that's a picture in the waiting room. We thought that was really ironic that was the magazine that was sitting there in the waiting room for us.
Yeah, I was thinking, people don't really buy newspapers anymore, but that sort of used to be the tradition. But maybe now this is it, look for the magazines that were popular the day your baby was born. That's awesome. I love that. Now, we had a great question, and I think that this could even be case by case. Now, I'm sorry, I could phrase my words. It was just you and Josh that traveled to be with her at the hospital, right? Did any of your family ever come out after he was born while you were waiting to come home? How did you involve family members on your side that were so anxious, and excited to meet your baby while you were out?
Right. Well, Josh's family all lives here in California, so they weren't able to make it out that way because it's quite a distance. So they were excited and anxiously awaiting us to get home, but my family lives in Indiana, and they were close enough that they offered to drive down and meet up with us there in Florida after he was born. So they were able to, since he came a little bit later than his due date was expected, he actually came about 2 weeks later, so we ended up being there in Florida for quite a while. They came down on the day they were planning to come down. They assumed that he'd already be there by that point, but we just stayed on schedule. So they ended up meeting up with us in the hospital. We were all staying in the same room at first with Callie as she was recovering, which I thought was going to be really awkward. You don't know how to handle things, but it really was. It was fun. I think we enjoyed it. It kind of felt like a slumber party, which sounds weird, but I mean, we stayed up talking all night and taking care of the baby and changing his diapers together, and I think we really got to know each other really well at that point. And we asked her, my family was coming into town, and she said, "Oh yeah, they can come by. I don't mind." So I was really surprised. I hadn't wanted to intrude on her time at the hospital at all, but she was happy to have them come and visit. So they came in, they got to meet her, which was nice. I know they appreciated getting to meet her in person since they're so far away. And they were able to stay with us at our condo for a few days and help take care of the baby, and that was wonderful for them.
See, I love hearing that creative thinking too, because I think a lot of hopeful parents get stuck on this, how am I going to do bottles in a hotel room? But there's so many different options. There's long-term rentals, there's suites, there's extended stay hotels. I even heard a story recently where Facebook has now become a resource where you can say, hey, I'm going to be staying this long in this area. Does anybody know a recommendation or somebody that can help me find a good place? And then sometimes you end up with friends that you can stay with.
Yeah.
So, and I love that you involved Callie in that, that it wasn't just this sort of take over, take charge sort of thing, like, I'm adopting this baby, my family's important too, but rather, hey, this opportunity is presented, they would actually love to meet you, and that she was open to that.
Yeah, and I think she enjoyed seeing, like, my little brother hold the baby and how awkward he was.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, and I know, especially this was your first child, a lot of times when people adopt, they also, they're excited and they know that they will love a child through adoption, but that they also sometimes have to kind of grieve those old dreams, those traditions that most, or many new parents get, in the hospital, where you get this parade of visitors coming through, and but that you created a different kind of story, and it's just as amazing to see how he was welcomed into this world.
Yeah, there was so much love there around him, and that's what I want to convey more than anything, is that it doesn't have to be a scary and highly emotionally charged event. You can just be happy too. And there were some emotional moments, of course, but that's one of them. That was the first time Josh held him almost right after birth. He's still pink from coming out. I was able to get that shot.
I mean, as a couple who long to be parents, I would say most women that I've talked to after they adopted, this is one of their favorite moments, is being able to see this husband they love become dad.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, in these moments still, were you having to kind of tell yourselves, okay, he's in my arms, but he's still her baby, so we're still walking through this.
I remember that moment being super surreal. Just that part was a blur when we were in that room, because it was just so very surreal to be like, okay, here you go, and look down at this little baby and go, what? You mean it's finally here? What? Which I think is somewhat similar to how parents feel when you give birth as well. It was a bit of a shock that they're actually here. This is a real person, not just a thought in my mind. So that was just a blur there, and getting to hold him and giving congratulations, asking her how she was doing. So I almost don't even remember very much about those that first hour or so, because it was such a rush of everything going on. We got to relax a little more once we moved rooms to the recovery room, and got to spread out a little more and take a deep breath and kind of decompress a little bit. That was kind of fun.
What was the hospital staff like with you? Were they excited for you and for Callie too, or were they confused, or what was it like?
They were. We had kind of a combination. We had some people that were just wonderful and so kind, were always very careful to make sure that they asked her what she wanted and not just kind of go past her and ask us, which was important. We didn't want her pushed aside in any way. And I think most of the hospital staff did a good job of that. The only time that it was really awkward, and Callie actually got a little upset about it too, was when they came in to do the birth certificate information. The lady came in and she pretty much ignored us and spoke directly to Callie, as in, what are you naming the baby? And we said, oh, we're naming him, Brendan. And then she looks directly at Callie and says, what are you naming your baby? In kind of a way that came across like we didn't matter and how dare we speak up kind of thing. So it was very awkward in that moment, but Callie kind of spoke up for us and said, yeah, we're deciding to name him Brendan. So she kind of threw some attitude at the lady back as well.
Yeah. Well, she already sounds like a strong young lady who knew what she wanted.
Very much, yeah.
Is that a conversation you got to have before? Because that is a common question that we get from adopting parents is, how does the birth certificate work out? Will we get to name the baby, or do we have to wait until the adoption's finalized? And it can be really case by case.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We had talked ahead of time on, different name ideas. Here's what we like. We kind of brought it to her. Here's a few that we're considering. What's your thought on these? We kind of asked her, is there something that would be important to you to include in his name? And she was very flexible. She just kind of said, no, he's going to be your son. It's totally up to you. I mean, she'd weigh in on, oh, I like this one a lot kind of thing, but she gave us the choice ultimately. So I think the way that it worked was they put Brendan down on the birth certificate, but then it had her last name. And then once we finalized, we had to take it to an office where we were able to switch the information to be our last name. Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly how that worked, but I think that was it.
And again, those are moments. I mean, it could have gone differently. She could have said, actually, I've been wanting to name him this, and you
Mm-hmm.
probably would have kind of made some eye contact with her, like, go forward, like, don't stumble, if you're going to put a name there. I mean, you would have loved her and still adopted this little boy, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think the cool thing about open adoption and taking that opportunity to get to know each other puts you in sync. So then,
Mm-hmm.
most birth mothers, some of these women want to pass a name on to their child, at least in the start. But a lot of women these days want to know what you're thinking, and they want you to start identifying as those babies' parents in that way right from the birth certificate at the hospital. So it can really vary, and I would just say, unique to your relationship with her, it unfolded the way it did.
And that's one of the things I tell people when they ask, why do you have an open adoption, is the entire time she never gave us any reason to be afraid. She, almost from the very start, she was very clear in that this is your baby. And that was kind of surprising because I wasn't expecting that. I mean, she was so very strong on, this is my decision, this is what I want to do. I'll share anything you need to, I'm an open book kind of thing. So that was really nice. And in a way, when we first matched, it almost worried us more because we wondered if maybe it wasn't really hitting her. Maybe she wasn't realizing yet the magnitude of that. So we worried in that sense that, oh, maybe it's going to hit her later really hard. But that didn't end up being the case. She was honest with us the whole time. I mean, even at the hospital, she kind of told us that, I didn't think I was going to feel like a mom at all, but once I held him, I did. And I'm kind of glad that I had that moment. And for her to express that to us was really neat, that she felt safe enough to say that to us.
I love hearing that because we are big advocates for sometimes you can't say goodbye until you say hello. And so when I work with women who might say, sometimes these birth mothers are nervous. Like, I feel that adoption is the right choice, but what if I get so attached that all reason goes out the window and I forget why I chose adoption in the first place? But her just being real with you, real with herself, taking time to hold him, to know him some, I think is just a beautiful part of his story, and I would imagine that it also brought her some peace knowing that, okay, I actually had those feelings. It's not that I'm disconnected from this child. It's that I'm making a decision for this child.
And I told her that's a good thing. It just proves that you love him.
So tell us about this photo, Laci. This one I'm popping up now.
Oh, that is her mom, and that was right after he was born. So she was in there too, and she was so excited. she's such a sweet woman. We send her pictures all the time, and she always comments right away on how cute and how big he's getting. And so it was nice to get to meet her in person as well, and get to see multiple people, not just Callie.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this, Kim. I don't know if you're thinking this, but
I am. I'm
like
liking it.
she shares a nose and a smile with Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The resemblance.
It's the funniest thing because
they look like relatives.
Right. I know. And when we all stand together in pictures or in person or something, you'd never know. I mean, people think we're related, so it's funny.
I love that. And we had a question earlier that said, are you still in touch with her mother? So I hope that answered that for you.
I wish she lived closer, but she's still out in Florida. So, I mean, if we ever head out that way, I'm happy to let them visit, but it's a ways, so Facebook is very helpful.
Yes. Facebook has totally changed open adoption. I mean, were you ever afraid, like, wow, I'm not sure that I'm ready to share social media with her. You know, what if she gets too personal? What if she gets too close?
Not so much with her, more hypothetically before we had matched. We worried more about that, but once we got to know her, it was like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. Why were we worried about this? And with Facebook, it's also helpful knowing that not everybody has to see everything that you post. You can customize it as well, so that, you know, certain things only go to family and friends, some go out to everybody. So if we had something that we didn't want her to see, for example, not that we did, but that was always an option. And she was actually more not wanting to join on Facebook at the beginning, because at the time there were some friends of hers that still never knew she was pregnant, and she didn't want our stuff popping up on her feed and then finding out that way. She wanted to tell them in person. So a couple months went by, and then she said, oh, it's fine. I changed my mind. Just open it up. I don't care anymore. So.
And, yeah. I know that you have a storybook that you share with Brendan. You know, and he's not yet 2. I mean, he'll be 2 in December, so.
Goes so fast.
Sure, yes, but you know, when he sees these photos, does he point like, I've seen that before, or does any of that? How do you tell that story when you're looking at these pictures?
I haven't really gotten that far yet, other than he's just now gotten to a point where he's starting to enjoy sitting still and looking at books. Before, he would just kind of tear them apart or eat them. We have a couple of chunks taken out of Goodnight Moon already. But he does like looking at pictures and like you said, pointing to people, so he recognizes like grandma and things like that. So as he gets a little older, I want to sit down with him and tell him the story. I think he'll enjoy that. And I love these pictures.
Oh, they're beautiful. Who took these photos?
I took that one, I believe. I had my camera. I was trying to snap as many as I could.
They're priceless. I mean, to look at that, who could deny that she cares about that baby and that she's that baby's mom too, you know?
Exactly.
You're his mama, and she's part of his story, and it leads into a great question here that said, you said Josh had some reservations in the beginning. Did he become more comfortable in the months you got to know your son's birth mom with the whole open adoption reservations that he initially had?
Yeah, it was doing a lot of research. We went to a couple of seminars about open adoption where, birth parents would talk and adoptive families would talk, and getting to hear more of the real life stories, I think, helped a lot in that sense, not just seeing, the way he put it, not just seeing the dysfunctional cases that came into him in the office. You start to get a little skewed, I think, when that's all you see day in and day out. You forget that there are good stories out there, and getting reminded of that, I think that helped us trust a lot more.
Now I'm going to pop up this next photo because I think this is just as moving. I'm assuming there's prayer going on in this photo. Tell us the story about this picture, because I think that this would surprise a lot of families too, that they would maybe even share a moment like this in common with the birth family.
Yeah, that was, we had asked the chaplain of the hospital to come in and kind of do a prayer. This was right before, I'm trying to remember if it was before we left. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. So he's chiming in now that he hears me. Yeah, right before we left with Brendan, we wanted to kind of have a moment that would kind of, just solidify everything and mark how special it was. And we're not, at least I'm not a very emotional person in the sense that I don't wear my emotions on my sleeve as much, and Callie's the same way. She's very, she kind of holds it in. She's very strong. But that was the moment where we all had tears. Not because it was sad, but just because it was so moving and such a big moment. Like, wow, look at all these people coming together over love. So yeah, that was special.
And again, so who shot this photo?
What's that?
I'm just wondering who was the clever one that had this photo taken?
Oh, I think that was one of the nurses.
Oh.
Yeah. And she had my name, too, so we bonded over that.
Oh, very good. And so then, now I just want to back up because we did have a question earlier. So you actually had your own your own hospital room while Brendan was in the hospital, right?
We did. Well, that was the room that we shared with Callie at the start. Okay. So you could see it's pretty small. So 3 people crammed in there. Was interesting to say the least, and then add in a bassinet on top of that. But, none of us were going to be sleeping anyway. There was so much going on that we tried to trade off and get sleep here and there. And I think that was kind of a fun bonding experience, all getting to take care of him together for that first night or two. And I'm glad we had that because I think it bonded us much more than if we'd immediately had our own room. And she was getting to see, what it's like taking care of a baby that's up all the time and has all the dirty diapers and needs to be fed. And I'm glad that she kind of got to experience that a little bit too. We were all kind of learning together.
Now, how old was Callie?
She was 23, I think. No, 21? I don't even remember. She was in her early 20s. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you're just now starting to catch up on sleep and getting into
Right. Yeah. Just when I got used to all the baby stuff, it completely changes.
Yes. Okay, let's see. We have some great questions coming in. I want to make sure we cover them all too. I think you touched on this a little bit, but have you talked maybe among just you and Josh, or maybe with Callie, about what she maybe wants to be referred to by Brendan in the future? Do you have a name for her, or?
We asked her last time she was visiting, and just kind of said, is there something you prefer to be called? And she said, I don't know. I think I'll just let him call me whatever he wants to when he gets old enough to talk. And I'm okay with that. We don't have anything in particular that we've decided we're going to refer to her as, so we just kind of call her Callie. I don't know how that's going to develop. We'll kind of visit it when we get there. Her mom did ask us specifically. She around Christmas she emailed us and said, so I have this question, and I hope it doesn't come across wrong, but I want to send him a birthday card, and I don't know how to refer to myself in the birthday card. So is there something in particular? Would it be wrong if I called myself Grandma? And we said, no, not at all. Please, refer to yourself as whatever you want him to call you. We're fine with that because you are part of his family. So that was sweet of her to think about it and ask us.
So this photo has a funny caption here. It said, someone described a wheelchair. Was this
Yeah.
a request or the hospital saying, hey,
Oh,
somebody's got to sit in it?
it was hilarious. Yeah, the rule was when we discharged, Kelly had already discharged by at that time, and the rule was that when you are leaving the hospital with the baby, you have to be in a wheelchair. And we were looking at each other like, well, I didn't give birth, so there's really no need for me to be in the wheelchair. And we all thought it would be really funny if Josh was the one holding him.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny.
So they pushed Josh out, and just getting the looks the people were giving us was hilarious. We ran across two little old ladies as we were going out the sliding doors at the lobby, and Josh was like, yeah, I had to push really hard. That was an awesome moment.
When you were getting to know Callie, and this is a great question that we just had typed in, when you were getting to know each other, did she talk to you specifically about things she was hoping for Brendan's future, or some of those more detailed or specific goals she had for him through adoption and through choosing you specifically?
I don't remember if it was during our match or if it was after. We kind of found out more of that after, in the times that she had visited us after his birth. I think there was just so much going on when we were there that there wasn't time for a lot of really deep questions there at the hospital and things. We were still getting to know each other and just trying to keep it light, and we knew it wasn't going to be goodbye then. We knew we had lots of time to talk in the future. So we found out a little bit more, as we all got comfortable with each other, and kind of asked her, why did you consider adoption versus parenting? And the way that she put it is she always felt, she told her mom this, we later found out right when she got pregnant, that she didn't feel it was her baby. She felt like she was having the baby for someone else. And I thought that was amazing that she would feel that and say that and be able to look back on that and realize, wow, that's the way it worked out. But the way that she put it was, I would do a really good job parenting, and I know that, but I don't want for him to constantly be in daycare while I try and finish school. I want better for him than that. She wanted him to have a two-parent family and to have the things that she couldn't do because she was still trying to establish her own career. She's got a pretty tough college schedule ahead of her. She's into astrophysics, believe it or not. She is smart.
Oh my.
So she's doing physics right now in college, and that's a difficult course load, and she knows that. So she wanted that for herself. She wanted to be able to succeed in her dreams and goals as well. And so she knew that about herself. She was very strong about it.
So tell us about, now this photo that's up right now is, obviously you were still in Texas. He's a newborn. I'm sorry, not Texas, Florida.
Florida,
I had
yeah.
a family from Texas. And you were waiting for clearance to go home. Now, we did have a couple questions, and again, I think this would vary case by case, but we had a few people say, how long did you have to stay out of state before you got to take him home? But I think it's worth reminding everyone, too, that they had already been in town 2 weeks before he was born, or they were planning on that 2 weeks before. So they'd already had a longer than usual stay. But once he was born, how long did it take to get clearance to take your little boy home?
How long was it, Josh? Was it about 2 weeks before everything cleared? Before we got to go home?
It was during the holidays.
That's right.
We also ended up staying a few days more.
Oh, that makes it harder. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It was during the holidays. So everything was kind of slow. We expected it would take longer. But then once things did clear, we had initially bought plane tickets for about 2 weeks out, assuming that that's how long it would take, and we'd change it if we needed to. We actually got clearance a few days before we were due to fly home, but we decided to stick around a little bit longer just so that we wouldn't have to switch everything around. It was just easier. We were comfortable there, and we were anxious to get home, but it ended up being easier just staying a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, about 2 weeks.
You got him home, And here we are. This photo is the day you got to finalize his adoption.
Yeah, we were able to do it at a conference room, so as a video. We didn't have to fly back to Florida, which we were very happy about. That's a long ways with a baby. Yeah, the plane ride was what made me the most anxious. I was so worried he was going to get sick, but he didn't. I got sick.
Oh, no.
From traveling, of course, all the stress and things, but he was fine. His immune system was great.
So now, and this leads to, as we wrap up tonight, what is open adoption for you like today? Have you seen Callie since he was born?
Yeah. Oh, it's been great. We've actually had her come to visit us twice so far. She moved to Washington to go to school, so she's a lot closer to California now. Made it a little easier, and she was able to fly down for a couple of big things. We had his baby dedication at church, and she was able to come to that and met some of our friends at church and Josh's family. So they got to spend some time with her, and we even got to go to Disneyland together, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's us at church, and people just assumed we were sisters. We had the same hair color at the time. So she didn't even have to tell anybody who she was if she didn't want to. People just kind of figured she was part of our family, and she is. So that was a special moment for her to get to come up there and be a part of that and just see how we live and what his life is going to be like, what his little friends will be there at church.
Well, and just kind of a note that I made, an observation here, is that, two of these photos we just showed recently showed Callie feeding him, so it wasn't, a lot of times we're asked questions along the lines of, do you ever feel like you're not mom, or like you're threatened when she's around, like somehow she's trying to take over, but this to me looks more like, yes, please feed him. We want you to share in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not stingy about it. I figured, we let Grandma feed him. We let my sister and in-laws and things feed him. So it's just, we wanted her to have as much time as she could. It's just a very small amount of time that she gets to spend with him, so why not? It's just someone else that loves him. Yeah, that's Disneyland. That was a fun trip because we were all able to go together, and she'd never been to Disneyland. She's from Florida, so I think she's been to Disney World, but getting to show her all my favorite places too, because I used to work there, was really fun. And take that picture with Brendan. He loved some of the rides, so that was neat to get to watch his expressions and how excited he was on all the rides along with Callie.
And I'm just noting, she's a young woman, so it doesn't surprise me, but, here she was pregnant when you met her, and now she looks a little different just because she's not having just given birth, and she's not carrying her pregnancy weight. Was that interesting to see her looking more like herself?
Yeah, it was, and we always teased her because when we first met her, she had purple hair. So when we met up, we said, well, the baby's going to come out with purple hair, right? So it was fun to see. She looked very different when she visited us again, and she's a gorgeous girl. So it's fun to get to see some of the resemblances that she gave him his dimples and his cheeks, and they have similar expressions. So it's fun to get to see that, where that comes from. Oh, I love that one.
This is like a little Ewok hat that he's got going on here.
He's a smiley baby. He's very good in photos.
Well, I was thinking earlier, Laci, just you and Josh are smiley people. And looking at photos of her, too, I think probably he's just seeing this all around him.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there was a photo earlier of him, and I think it's coming up again, where you had this looked like a little knit dinosaur guy, or little knit animal. Yeah. So Callie has one, too, so he has a toy that she also has.
Yeah, I wanted to make something to give her that would kind of be special, and one of her favorite movies, and Josh's as well, so one of the reasons that they bonded pretty early on when we first met was they love Jurassic Park. So she loves the dinosaur stuff. So I thought it would be fun to knit a little dinosaur. And there's one that's blue. That one's Brendan's. And then she's got the orange one with the blue belly. So they're the same size. And then I brought it to her in the hospital so she'd have something to take home with her, something to carry as she left. And then I took pictures with Brendan with his so she could compare in size how big he was getting. And they just turned out super cute. I don't know if I would have taken photos every month and been as on top of things had I not had that to do. So I'm really glad I did that.
And I think that's a really clever way, because a lot of parents aren't always sure, how do I stay on top of my commitment to share updates? And, you know, I mean, these days people are taking photos of their children doing everything from grooming, sleeping to, you know,
it
body
wasn't
training,
hard.
everything else. Right, but to remember and actually have sort of almost a process so that you get in that routine, because she's important to you also. I want to share with you, Laci, some of these comments that are coming in, which I just felt inspired by, especially after we spoke yesterday, but just remembering how, I mean, you and Josh are just an upbeat couple anyways. You know, and you were always on the ball, getting things ready, and you were just open minds, open hearts to the concept of these birth mothers choosing you and moving forward. But just you even sharing tonight, going back to how we began this webinar this evening, is just, you know, talking about how important it is to have positive stories, positive experiences that you get to hear from. And one of his comments said, I so appreciate her sunny disposition. We really needed this. I love that. And then there was one earlier that just said, I just feel refreshed hearing Laci's story. And so it's just been so great to have your insights and your opinions, and just mostly I think just to see open adoption through your life stories going on right now.
Yeah, and I love sharing that with people. When people ask, one of my favorite stories to tell was when Callie was here for his first birthday party. We had a lot of people over at the house, and she helped with the decorations, and we all made cupcakes together and things. Some of the people that came, friends from church, didn't know who she was or that she was going to be there. And she was right next to me when somebody asked me to my face, so do you keep in touch with the birth mother? And I think she actually had a lot of fun saying, actually, that's me. And just kind of watching this person's face fall like, oh my gosh, I just put my foot in my mouth. So getting to challenge those stereotypes has actually been kind of neat. So I try and share as much as I can when people ask that it's not like the stereotypes. We actually have a really healthy, really wonderful situation, not like you imagine in the news. And he was healthy, she was healthy, so very smart, and things are going really well. So I like to share that and show people that it's not always what you think.
Yeah, and I think too, just looking at these photos, I don't think it's necessarily that you looked related to her that she chose you, but that stuff about your life stood out to her, and she felt right moving forward with you.
Exactly.
Well, I'm so grateful you were able to come on and share tonight, and for all of these questions that we had in the audience too. They've just been really great to piggyback when we're moving through your story, and I just appreciate your encouragement too, Laci, because I think a lot of this is, you obviously went through all of these thoughts, and now you have your son to kind of counteract that, and so you know what a lot of these hopeful parents are thinking, and I'm grateful. And Kim, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap up tonight?
No, I'm just happy to be along for the story here and enjoying the photos right along with everyone else.
It's fun seeing them again.
It's ironic that you guys did your finalization through Skype, because I think we did our conference through Skype when we first met you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
A long time ago, but yeah, so that's pretty
Technology's
cool.
awesome.
Technology. Yeah, so, but I just appreciate you sharing all these details, and people have commented, they're so you know, it's so nice to see you being so upbeat about everything and such a sunny disposition. And so we appreciate you just sharing these details and the awesome photos with us. I know that this is encouraging to everyone who's with us.
Yeah, it's a tough road, but you know, it works out in the end. There's definitely ups and downs for sure. There were some hard times, but it's totally worth it looking back.
And looking at these photos.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions or feedback after tonight's webinar, we would love to hear from you. So please reach out to us, whether you are already working with a coordinator here at Lifetime. You can contact her and let her know your response to tonight's webinar or any questions that may have sparked from hearing Laci's story. And if you are new to Lifetime's program in such a way that you've not yet personally connected, we would love to hear from you and answer any questions that you have, because I do believe that getting as many answers as you can and just continuing to learn as much as possible from people who have walked through adoption, people who are familiar with it professionally and personally, it's just going to help you get more clear about the direction you want to go and where you want your story to head and how you want to reach your goals. So please reach out to us. You can call us at Lifetime 1-800-923-6784, or you can always email adopt@lifetimeadoption.com, or like Kim said earlier, if you have questions and you've not yet connected with a coordinator at Lifetime, you can always write to her personally. But we'd love to see you on Facebook and continue our conversation, and we hope to see you again on future webinars too. So thank you all for making time to be here tonight to hear Laci's story, and we hope that you have a great evening and a great weekend. Talk with you soon.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, Laci.
No problem. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.